It looks like we are live now.
Hey, let's start the show.
It's January 29th, 2015. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com.
Dear God.
My finger slipped. I'm Will Smith. Double tableting today, Norman Chan.
Only one tablet.
Oh, it's a phone and a tablet. You still have that delightful Dell. It looks almost like the Slate computer that I imagined from science fiction.
Ah, the HP Slate.
Yes.
It's nothing at all like the HP Slate, fortunately.
But what I'm talking about is the pad from Star Trek, the thing that's
PADD.
basically just a screen with no computer around it. Jeremy Williams, what do you think about this?
Oh my gosh, I was not paying attention.
We're now 30 seconds into the show. I've messed up twice. My mic was loose and making static, and the music was too loud. This is just a complete debacle today.
That's a nice looking tablet.
It's a little slab of computer, right?
You know, this design also extends to their new XPS 13, which I'm hoping to get into test.
I bet Apple likes that design. I bet they're saying,
You think so?
of all the non-iPads, they did all right.
Wow, I don't think you would ever hear anyone at Apple concede that, ever.
Not publicly.
Right.
But internally, they have to be looking at what everybody else
That's
is
gotta
doing and saying, hey,
grind
this is good or this is bad.
Someone on Johnny Ive's design team said, Dell?
Look, here's...
Dell?
Right.
The
Yeah,
anti-Apple?
well, I hope maybe that'll motivate them.
To what?
Bring their game. Up it.
Here's this...
I don't think they need to really change their game, nor do I think they're going to dramatically change their game.
Hey, everyone likes competition. That inspires people.
You think brushed aluminum is going to fade to brushed dark,
shiny
gray,
white plastic, man.
magnesium?
Before they say that's not a bad design, they're going to say they totally copied us. This is space gray.
This is space gray. Yes. I've heard many times now, that just looks like a really big iPhone 5S.
So here's the thing.
That's
though.
why it's good design.
If you want to knock off Apple design, all you have to do is look at the two things that are important. What's the most important button? Which one is most important? And then the screen, obviously, is the important thing. And then just take away everything else.
There are no hard chamfered edges on this thing.
But there's no hard chamfered edges on current Apple products,
Yeah,
are
I
there?
don't like the design of the new iPhone either.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I like it. It's nice.
It's
big.
everywhere.
But it's not. It's decidedly less grippy than the metal edges on the 5 and 5S were.
Yeah, you go naked. I don't know about that.
I like to raw dog that
I
shit.
can't do that. I break my stuff.
It's a little too bubbly.
I miss the thing that you said when you first looked at it. I miss the edge. I miss this putting it up on its side, letting it just ride
Of the phone?
vertical. I can't do that. It just falls over and over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sad.
You know why they did that, though?
He said?
Yeah,
Did you say it?
Johnny
I missed
explained
this.
that in an interesting interview. He said that was part of the make it feel smaller methodology.
Well, it's one of their tricks, right? Like the hiding the edges. I was walking by an Apple store the other day, and they have a new display, at least in the one in Burlingame. I think in the one in Stonestown, too. But in the window, they have a bunch of iPad Air 2s, and then they have this base, and the smart covers fold in and fold out seemingly by nothing. There's no wires above that are visible. So the table looks perfectly flat. Like there's no holes in the table or anything like that. So clearly they have magnets in the bottom of the covers, and they chamfered the edges of the table underneath to put the mechanism to move the smart covers and power the iPads.
They look at magician's tricks.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, we saw this when we went to see Penn and Teller.
Yes.
Like they had chamfered edges on the cut in half woman.
Yeah. It's what they did with the iPad 1.
Yes.
The hard edge on the side.
And the MacBook Air.
And the MacBook and the iMac.
Yeah.
I mean, the iMac is not, its hard edge is that thin, but the actual computer is bulbous in the back.
It'll come back, It's just like the Sneetches with their stars. As soon as everyone has chamfered edges, then they have to get rid of them.
What's a sneech with the star?
You know the Dr. Seuss story where they all get the star, and then half of them don't have the star, and they all want the star because they want to be cool. So the guy comes with this machine, and he sells stars to all the sneeches who have no stars. And then he makes a machine that removes the stars because everyone has a star. You got to be unique. You got to get rid of it.
Seuss was insightful.
It's kind of like that episode of
Marketing.
Star Trek where the people with the white and the black faces hate each other.
That's not it at all. That's I
don't remember
Oh
that
my
one.
god! And that was not the best way to describe that episode either.
What? One people have white on the right
Yes.
side of their face, and one person has white on the left side, white on the
Correct.
left side
That
of their
is-
face.
that is
and the
technically
right
right.
side white people and the left side white people hate each other.
But the way you described it previously, I thought.
The white and the black on their
Yeah,
faces, they hate each other.
let's
We should just move
let's
on.
Strike that from history.
Hey, you know what's a heck of a town, Jeremy Williams?
Well, Reston, Virginia is not bad.
It's pretty good. That's true. I've spent some time there.
Yep.
Hiked the trails for a planned community
That's right.
with a man-made lake. It's okay. I like it. They had a good Safeway there.
It sounds like you're thinking of another town.
Well, Chicago is a heck of a town.
That's my kind of town.
I went to Chicago this weekend and did a bunch of stuff, but I ate at Portillo's, which longtime whiskey media fans will remember as a annual Giant Bomb E3 tradition because they go to Anaheim and eat
That's
at
the
the Portillo's there.
The big dip sandwich.
Norm and Joey and I went there last year,
2 years.
2 years ago, on the way to Comic-Con, I think. And we did it wrong. We ordered wrong. We were close. But so I met a couple of friends there who are local Chicagoans, and they walked me through the proper order for Portillo's. It's an Italian beef sandwich that's dipped in like
Super
an au
soft
jus.
bread.
Yeah,
Yes.
with soft bread already, so that it ends up soggy and kind of gross
And when you
delicious.
say beef, there's a lot of beef.
Yeah, it's a big beef sandwich with like onions and peppers and stuff. It was really good. It was delicious. But when we go back through Anaheim again, I'll
Explain the proper way of eating a Portillo's or ordering a Portillo's.
So we did the upsized ones. Like we got the big beef or the one with cheese and all that. That's a trap. All that is a trap.
Why?
I was told that
Any sandwich that has meat also can be made better with cheese.
the ratio of the dip fucks up the cheese situation. You don't want the cheese in the dip because it gets all greasy and terrible. So just the straight Italian beef
I think
dipped. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
It's America. It's a free country. This is what Ben Franklin fought in the Revolutionary War for.
I thought it was a fine sandwich.
It was a good sandwich. I went to the Cards Against Humanity office and worked out of there on Friday.
Are they based there?
They're based there.
Oh.
They're Chicagoans.
I thought they were here.
They have it's a really neat it's like a co-working space with a little bit of Cards Against Humanity office in the back. But they had Killer Queen set up there. Do you know what Killer Queen is, Jeremy?
Killer Queen.
That is the song.
Oh.
Do you know what Killer Queen the arcade game is?
Ooh. Oh no. 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 I'm gonna say no.
So I met the guys. They had Killer Queen the arcade game at XO last year, which was my first introduction.
Now
to
I
it.
remember.
Yes.
Yes.
Did we talk about it already?
We did.
Oh,
but
no.
I saw it. It's 4 players. Indie. It's
Five
just-
players.
It's just
5v5.
It's just one. There's just one of these things, right?
No, there's a bunch of them now. They've been selling them.
Oh, they sell them.
You can buy them.
No
you know,
kidding.
You have a house in San Francisco, Jeremy. I'm just saying
Yeah, but I don't have 5 friends.
you actually need 9 friends.
That's no good.
Explain the game.
So the game is a 5v5 arcade cabinet. So there's basically, in order to play, you have 2 cabinets that usually sit back to back. And then each team, it's a team-based arcade game. So it's about the same size width-wise as like an X-Men, one of those double-wide X-Men beat-em-ups. Maybe a little bit narrower. It's way shallower because, of course, it's modern hardware and an LCD screen.
It's their own custom cabinet.
It's they designed the cabinet, they
That's
designed the
cool.
game, and the game is basically it's like a class-based team game, kind of like Team Fortress 2 or Dota or something like that in a lot of ways. You have there are 3 ways you can win. One is by collecting a bunch of berries and taking them back to your base. One is by killing the enemy queen 3 times, and one is by riding this slow-ass snail at the bottom of the screen all the way across to your gate.
Wow.
So basically, you have a little bit of like it's a little like StarCrafty in a lot of ways because like you have to kind of balance your approach like you would in an RTS game. You know, you can't lean too hard into economy. You can't lean too hard into military. You have to kind of keep it. I guess it's more like Civ than StarCraft.
Does the map scroll, or is it a fixed map and you see all the...
Fixed, right?
The map is fixed across the entire screen. They added a new map since the last time I played. There's a nighttime map now, which is a different board layout. But then there are a couple of different kind of characters that you can play. There are 4 drone slots on each team and 1 queen slot. The queen has like a sword and can kill people. By default, the drones can't. All they can do is collect berries and take them back to their base.
It feels like it's multiplayer chess.
The combat is a lot like Joust, actually. So, like the combat, when you go up against somebody else with a sword, the person who is higher on the y-axis wins. The queen can like do a dive bomb where she dives down on the sword, DuckTales style, maybe without the bouncing. And then there's power-ups. So the queen's job is to keep gates open. If the drones take a piece of fruit to one of the upgrade gates, then they'll become a warrior drone instead of just a drone. There's like a whole.
I'm sure there's
a lot of nuance.
Why explain what the appeal is, and I'm sure this is what makes it different of playing 5 people across one console on a big widescreen. Like, why psychologically and entertainmently, why is that more fun? And I know that is why it's fun, but I think this is what's notable about it.
It's a communications game, right? Like any other team class-based games where everybody has a role to fill. Your team has to communicate, and it's the type of game where a team that has 4 people who are all higher skill level than the the other team can lose if the other team communicates better and makes aggressive. So there's, it's all the stuff that happens in team-based games where you have feinting and like, you'll kind of draw attention one place and then go the other. And, it ends up being a very strategic exercise in about a 5-minute game, which is kind of unusual especially in the arcade world, but even in just like the larger world of video games, there aren't that many.
And the communication where everyone is standing next to each other on a shared panel looking at this exact same thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and it requires shift in much the same way that like a good strategy game requires you to constantly be aware of what your battlefield situation is, and then adapting to meet the changing needs of the game. This game strongly rewards that behavior.
Do you feel like the rules are more complicated than your standard arcade game?
I think that
does it borrow from the PC with space in that way?
It's interesting. The guys who make a bunch of games. I actually have a podcast sitting on my hard drive that I just haven't had time to get through and make into a piece of content instead of just an audio recording with the guys who made it. Mm-hmm. They talked about the types of games that they play in the recording that we did. I think it's more complex than, say, your Miss Pac-Man or your Galaga or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know that it's that much more complex than later age arcade games. Like basically it starts up with, hey, here's the 3 ways you can win, and then it dumps you into the game.
And arcade games, I think, shouldn't be necessary. It should be easy, like Mastermind, easy to learn, difficult to master.
Yeah, and the other stuff comes out over time, right? Like the best experience when you're learning how to play this is to take one of the drone seats, because if you fuck up as one of the drones, it's kind of not that big a deal. You as long as you're contributing a little bit or at least being a distraction for the other team, it kind of works out. But you want to have somebody driving the queen that kind of knows what they're doing. And usually what happens is after you play 3 or 4 times, and you pass over and you rotate through the different slots. It's a very compelling, it's a pretty amazing game. And if you ever have a chance to go play it, if you like arcade games at all, I know there's a couple of arcades in Chicago that actually have installations.
Oh, really? According to their website, it might be outdated. There's only 4 on location. One in Chicago at Logan Arcade, one in Portland at Ground Control.
Ground Control, yeah.
And then one in D.C. at Penn Social, one in Indianapolis at eBash.
Yeah, so I know Kickstarter has one of the. There's a bunch of privately held ones as well.
Really? Kickstarter offices have one?
Kickstarter offices have one.
Was the game kickstarted?
I don't know. Maybe. The guys who do it are in that, like, it's part of the. They came out of the New York City, Brooklyn kind of tech scene, though.
Yeah.
So Ground Control, there's a couple in the East Bay in private that are privately held. Mm-hmm. And then I think that there's a couple more in Chicago that are privately held as well.
Is this something they plan on releasing outside of a cabinet?
I think they're probably selling it wherever they can, I don't know that it would work outside of a cabinet. Like on a couch situation, what playing this made me think is that somebody needs to make an IDARB cabinet that's 4v4 and just connects directly to the other IDARB machine.
Yeah, and multiplayer communication-based multiplayer games would work well for.
So now,
cabinets.
just real quick, each team has their own screen, right?
Each team has their own
Is there
screen.
any unique information on the screens? That
No, it's the
okay.
same information on both sides.
All right.
It's not
So
asymmetrical.
yeah, so you know, if you can see one screen, you know the entire state of the game.
And what are they selling a pair of cabinets for?
I think it's in the,
I like the way you phrase that.
You have to have.
Well, you have to have a pair.
You have to have a pair.
it's in the vicinity of 12 grand, I think.
Okay.
Oh,
Maybe
boy.
10. I'm not sure.
That's
I think
serious.
it's the kind of thing that you call and ask them if you want to buy one.
12 grand for 2 cabinets for a startup with
Your-
funding.
Your typical.
I think is not outrageous.
You know, Norm, if we could just not put anything on the site for a few months and, put one in here, have a league,
That's not
charge
no,
$1 a play, you know.
a dollar per person.
Yeah, $1 per
play.
person. That's $10 a $10 a
$10
game.
every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do the math.
Yeah.
That's like Apple money.
We'd be millionaires. So then the other thing I did while I was in Chicago was this Wrigley's. The event I was at, one of the Wrigley's chemists came in to do some taste demos, and we've all done. Everybody's done the. Here's the 5 flavors you can taste: sweet, salty, sour, bitter. And you put the thing on your tongue and umami. Sorry, 5 things. You taste the different flavors. The Wrigley's chemist brought in a bunch of other things that I was not aware existed. So, for example, you know how when you put menthol in your mouth, like a Hall's mentholyptus,
Yeah.
and it gives you a unique sensation. It's not any of those flavors, but you can still taste it when you're sick and your nose is all stopped up. Things like menthol trigger the actual nerves without firing your taste buds. So yeah, they make the nerves in your mouth do things without the firing of taste buds, and that's why you get a unique sensation from things like menthol and capsaicin, which is the component that makes hot foods hot, stuff like that. She brought, I won't go through the whole thing, but the thing that she brought that was amazing was, have you ever had ginger Altoids?
Well, I've had ginger.
Okay, so when you bite into a bite of ginger,
Yeah.
and you get that, like, there's a kind of feeling in the back of your throat,
Yeah.
like the top, back of your tongue, back of your soft palate.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a horseradishy flavor, but not really. It's a unique mouth sensation.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So on ginger, there's one the molecule that has that attached has basically one thing dangling off of it that triggers that response. What they did was they looked at they isolated the thing that triggers the response, and then they made a molecule that has a whole shitload of those things dangling off of it. So it's super powered ginger instead of just, gingery flavor. So when you eat one of those ginger Altoids, which I assume is where she couldn't confirm because, stuff. But I assume that the ginger Altoids, since they're made by Wrigley, are the
What?
place that this showed up.
Altoids are made by
Altoids
Wrigley.
owned by Wrigley, I believe, yeah. Everything's owned by everything else, except for Mars bars, which we don't have in the United States anymore.
I didn't know that.
You put that in your mouth, and she gave us like a piece of paper that you put like a tiny little drop of this stuff on, and then you just kind of tapped it.
Yeah.
And it was the most intense. Like, I was afraid I had blown out my mouth.
It's the LSD of candy.
It was like people were kind of like swooning when they did this. If you brushed it instead of just tapping, it would be just way too much overload in terms of ginger flavor.
My goodness.
So yeah, we did a bunch of stuff like
Science.
that. It was a bunch of cool stuff like that.
That's
Where can
neat.
people learn more about this stuff?
That I think is probably someplace that they can't learn about. I don't know. That was not attached to a website or something like that. That was like
unfortunate.
trade secrets brought to show people, expand people's horizons, senses.
Was that part of a story you're doing?
No, that was just at the conference I was at. It
Just
was
for fun.
something that was
All right, so this
just
is
an
it.
Evening activity.
This is it. This is the information.
That's all I got. You want to talk about some tech news? Anybody? Did you guys get any trouble this weekend? Did you fly some quads or anything, Jeremy?
I just can't tell you how much I like my boosted board.
Really?
I swear to God. Yesterday,
You're getting me to come around on actually buying one.
You had a loaner that you've since sent back.
It's sent back.
it's my favorite piece of technology. I think I've decided. No, I think I've decided.
I felt that. I had a sense of that.
I think I would.
You're reinforcing.
Before I give up my boosted board, I would go Android. I would give up my iPhone.
What?
Yes. It's that much.
That would have been a much bigger statement like 3 years
Where
ago.
are you writing this?
Well, wherever I can, I ride it around my neighborhood, to do errands. I read it because we're renovating a house. I read it to the new house and back.
You
But
write it through narrow streets?
yeah, no, I've gotten good. I haven't.
How
yeah.
far is it from the new house to the? You're in
It's
Noe
only about
and
a
Gun Park?
mile and a half.
But it's
a hilly mile and a half.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
I love
super
that.
hilly.
I love that. I've learned to trust the brakes, and I'm practicing my foot braking. But
Okay.
it's just so fun. I mean, I'm getting comfortable. I got the knees bent. I'm like gliding. I bend back and forth. But the best experience I've had so far is going to Golden Gate Park on a Sunday
Ooh.
when they close the streets down in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah.
You can just go ride carved streets, huh?
Yeah, it's just great.
So you just go by yourself?
I took Peter. No, he was on my son. He was on a scooter, and so I would pull him up the hills on my board, and then I'd let him glide down the hills.
You know what
And-
you need? You need to get a ski rope that attaches to a Jeremy harness.
Yeah, I thought about that. Yeah, I did think about that actually. I looked where you would connect it on the board.
No, you have to connect it to
To
you.
your chest?
Yeah,
Your body?
But I don't.
Harness?
I
Put a Swiss seat on.
That sounds unsafe.
So one of the reasons I was okay not having it was it's kind of like a loner vehicle. Like I don't mean like loner as in you have to return it, but loner as in you are alone. Because when you're on it, unless I mean even if someone else is on a bicycle, you're moving at a different pace and using a different amount of energy, no energy.
You have to stand.
it's more energy than I usually expend.
Sure, but I'm saying like you can't use this with someone else if they don't have it. Like it's difficult to be
Yeah.
a social person.
Yep.
It is a get straight from one place to the other.
Yep. That's true.
And it's not like a shareable experience while you're riding it.
And those are the kind of experiences you try to isolate.
Well, I'm just
your-
saying, like if I'm using it on, I couldn't use it to go to work. It's too far. But
Right.
For on a weekend, if I was using it to get to brunch or something, I'd be going by myself. I couldn't take any of my housemates. You know, I'd be going separately.
Yeah.
Like so socially, its utility becomes is minimized because you can only use it.
Well,
by
I don't know.
yourself.
I mean, maybe not. I mean, you have housemates that you have skateboards, so maybe
Yeah.
you just all go on your skateboards. You just wouldn't ever kick.
My point is that it's something that because you have one, and maybe in the future more people will have them.
Yeah.
Then
should get
it
one.
become more.
I'm telling
useful.
you, I feel blissful every time I ride it. I come inside and I'm energized. My wife notices it. She's like, "You are so happy after riding that thing." It
feels great.
There's a
The
little
wind in your
spring
hair.
in your step.
It
huh?
does, and there are dangers involved, and I
Yes.
have a very nice helmet that I bought, and
I will also say that it gives
I
you
wear it.
a false sense of accomplishment because after you ride it, you're like, oh, I traveled through the city today. I did this and this, and amount of energy you actually use and calories burned.
see, I'm not coming
And-
to it from a skateboarding standpoint. I'm coming to it from I guess snowboarding, if anything.
Purely recreational.
And
I mean-
that's just a downhill experience. So, but what this does is sort of like snowboarding uphill and downhill in the city.
A skateboard isn't a thing when you're riding a skateboard as a commuter vehicle. It's not something you expend a ton of energy on. No
A
more than
skateboard?
you would just walking up the hill, right? It's not like going 100 miles bicycling. If you're riding a skateboard from your house down to the convenience store,
Yeah.
you kick a couple of times, and then once you get going, you kind of just ride, right?
But maybe you walk up hills,
You may walk up
you know,
hills,
and
yeah.
that's all you need to get a little bit of exercise. You're not even doing that on the booster board. So I don't pretend that it's a form of exercise, but it is insanely enjoyable.
I need to see you get into a rumble with the Z-board enthusiast.
Oh no,
Some Fast and Furious.
Z-board favorited a tweet of mine where I said I'd love to try one.
There we go. Z-board is the competitor, the longboard, the other motorized longboard.
Yes, they go 20 miles as opposed to 5, but they don't have the uphill capabilities.
No torque. Apple earnings were this week.
That seems like the big.
It was kind of a quiet news week.
The big news thing, even though it's primarily a financial story, the practical story is that Apple sold a lot of iPhones, way more than people expected. They sold 74.5 million phones, which
That's a lot of phones.
it is a lot.
A lot
And
of
I was
them
thinking about this.
are
like,
in China.
Yes, a lot
Yes.
of them in China, but we're talking about global market now, and we're really moving toward a future where, you know, in the U.S. Everyone has a smartphone, but globally, you know, it's one out of every. I'm throwing this random number out there, every 100 or so. It's not as common as we take for granted in the United States. So while it feels like we have market saturation here, it really isn't the case.
especially in the Bay. Like, fuck, man. When I was in Chicago, I saw a lot of people using Blackberries.
What?
Like a lot of people using Blackberries. I was
That's
like,
great.
Is that one of the new ones or is that the old one? I can't tell because they both look identical.
That's funny.
And
They weren't even ashamed of it.
the thing with the quote unquote emerging markets is that the assumption is that these markets also, or the people there, don't have enough money or there aren't enough people there to buy
The market wouldn't support.
full price $700, $800 phones, but they sold a lot, enough to grow significantly how many phones they sold year over year, quarter over quarter. But also the average price of the phone was much higher because of the new model, the 6 Plus.
I would argue that in the United States, most people can't afford a $700 phone as often as they replace it.
Yes, it's true, but that's how capitalism and consumerism works,
Right.
stateside. So Jeremy and I were talking about this beforehand. Apple sold their growth this quarter was about 30%. That's growth.
That's huge.
Quarter over quarter, and that's insane.
Yeah, especially because the iPad sales are down.
Yeah, iPad sales are down, but iPhone sales are significantly higher.
Yeah.
And Samsung sold 71 million phones.
So they sold
last
basically
year.
the same number of phones
But
last
Apple
quarter.
just-
you
In the
mean.
quarter.
in the
Yeah.
quarter.
For the year, Samsung's up.
Yeah, so
But Samsung's numbers were much less rosy. Is this because of their in their earnings call they actively said, I'm going to paraphrase, but they actively said, look, we're looking at making cheaper phones that are more accessible. And is this I mean, we're not financial guys, so probably we shouldn't even be talking about this. But I thought it was interesting that they sold roughly the same number of phones and Samsung was down and Apple is way, way up.
I think it says a lot about the type of buyers and where Apple's strengths are. The strengths are that people still value, it's still held highly psychologically, and it doesn't has. The big lesson is it doesn't hurt Apple to have high priced phones.
Did they break out the 6 versus any ratios of phones sold? So this is 5C.
The only thing you can derive is the ASP, the average selling price, and because average selling price went up.
You assume the Plus had something to do with that.
Plus had, and Plus was supply constrained initially. I think that everyone, including Apple, was surprised at how well the Plus received. And everyone can say, me included, people have had large phones for a long time. Companies have made large phones, 5.5-inch phones, for a long time. But it really is Apple takes their time with things and preps their user base and milks the most out of their user base for the longest time before jumping onto trends.
I have to say, at the conference I was at, most of the people that there were way more 6 Pluses and 5.5-inch Android phones than I expected.
Is
to
that
see.
it? Is that right?
Yeah, like lots of people were whipping out the big dog phones.
I was thinking about this, and before Apple announced iWatch, we all speculated
Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch. Sorry, Apple must do something different with the wearable. They must use, quote unquote must, like analysts said, they must do bendable display, something that's not just a traditional watch.
Something that's going to change the form factor.
And they ended up making something that looks very much like your traditional watch. And if you think back to products like even the Mac, iPhone, iMac, iPad, none of those products were significantly different than what came before it.
Well, they
just did it the Apple way.
They were an integration. Typically, what they did was integrated stuff better. Like if you look at the Mac and the iMac, and even the iMac didn't integrate stuff better at the time. It did. So, what my first job out of college was maintaining a computer lab full of fucking shitty first-gen iMacs. So, while I like the design of those products, they were not good products from many, many standpoints. Mm-hmm. But what they did was they built a product that was perfectly designed for that environment, right? Like it was a turnkey computer solution. There were no cables.
Little handle on top.
Yeah, it was easy to pick up and move. When one conked out, I just literally went to the closet, put one back, sent the other one off to be fixed, and then it came back 2 weeks later and it was better again. Like in that regard, it was a really incredibly successful product.
And the friendliness,
even though you could buy a much better computer for much less money.
The friendliness of the design carried through to the software too.
Yes.
Like the whole experience was just
Which is
I don't know about
is
OS 7,
intangible,
man.
which is actually an intangible that is derived from maybe a tangible technical or design aspect, but it's not something that you can peg beforehand. So with iPhone, and I don't mention iPod because I think iPod is actually the one thing that really differentiated. because there were the wheel and
Well,
but-
iPod deconstructed, right? So it took the hey, here's the product that is. Here's a massively complex product category that most normal people can't figure out how to use. We're going to make it simple, and here's the thing that serves that function.
And keeping it simple really is the hallmark of an Apple product. iPhone, we had smartphones beforehand, like quote unquote smartphones with keyboards. We had PDAs beforehand. What iPhone did was something that took advantage of capacitive touchscreens
And flash memory.
and flash memory. But its huge success in user interface was capacitive touchscreens, multi-touch capacitive touchscreens. But functionally, it did kind of all the things that a PDA did beforehand, email, web browsing. But
Especially the first gen before there were apps.
right, but looked the same. iPad. Remember, before the iPad came out, everyone thought the iPad had to be a MacBook without like the full Mac OS,
OS 10, yeah.
OS 10 on just a touchscreen, and people thought it had to be, it was going to replace your MacBook, and it was going to be $2,000, super expensive. And the thing Apple did was kept it simple, made it $500, and made it a big iPhone, and it was a huge success. And that's what all tablets are basically today, and it got ramped up from then.
So
Well-
do you guys think that the smartwatch category needs to be simplified? What can Apple do to
I think-
make the Apple version?
I think
of
the difference here is
smartwatch?
that Pebble is the simplified smartwatch, right? It lets you show notifications. You can run some limited apps, but it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. And as a result, you have 4 or 5 days worth of battery, which it turns out is kind of it's in a weird battery gap, right? When you're like, I mentioned, I've talked about this before. It's much easier for me to remember to charge something every single day than every 5th day. Because what ends up happening is you end up forgetting until it is the midway through the 5th day and your battery dies and you're like, well, shit, man, now my watch doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I think I'm interested to see. I think that
Even birth control pills have placebos.
right for a very specific reason.
Yes.
I'm really interested in. I think the stuff that they're doing with direct communication, the user to user communication for the watch stuff, where you can tap and let your wife feel your finger tapping on the screen or your heartbeat or whatever. Like, I feel like that stuff is kind of, I don't think we understand what the impact of that's going to be yet, because I think that's going to both encourage people who buy one in a family to then buy a second one in the family, but also I think that type of really and it's a dumb example, the heartbeat thing, but I think that kind of super simple, instant, one-to-one, don't have to scroll through your contact list and find the person, don't have to launch your phone, open an app, do all that stuff. I think that's going to end up being a much bigger deal than we think it is. Because if you look at the way younger people are using things like WhatsApp and Snapchat and all that stuff, like they're using it in a much more kind of ubiquitous, always-on way, and people our age don't do that. And I think that Apple looked at what kids are doing.
You think the
and
Apple
are bringing
Watch
this to
is targeted to
old
young people?
No, I think the Apple Watch is bringing things that young people are doing on apps and bringing it to old people.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that. If you look at the things Apple has always looked at, trends and things like that are happening. Like if you look at the iPod. The move from the iPod as a hard drive storage to flash storage was explicitly designed to increase demand for flash, so that when they got the screens to the place that they wanted them for the phone, they could have as much storage as they needed. And you saw the ramp on the storage from the first gen iPhone to the third gen iPhone. We were looking at 32 and 64 gig models already.
So what is the equivalent for that for the watch?
I think it's a software issue now. I think the thing that's happening is ARM processors are getting ubiquitous. Screens are low power and massive resolution now because of the rise of the quad pixel displays, and they're looking at this is a raw software interface for the hardware for the real world. So it's a much more personal interface for your connection to the internet and thus the 5 people that you care most about. Like I think that's going to be their pitch on this. I could be completely wrong.
We'll find out in April, right?
Couple of months, maybe 3.
Tim Cook said April in the earnings call.
That was the big news.
Here it comes.
They also
Actual product
they've
news.
sold 1 billion iOS devices since the dawn of the iPhone.
By the way, I wrote Tim Cook that day, not even knowing it was the earnings day.
Just Tim at Apple.com?
It's tcook at apple.com. I wrote him to share a story that happened at school where the whole the entire school, I watched my kid have a morning meeting where they went through the history of cell phones. They were bored and half interested until they got to 2007. iPhone came up on screen. The whole school erupted in cheering and applause.
Wow.
And I said, "Whoa!" All the adults looked around confused, and then
Jeez,
they understood. But the iPhone means something to kids, like all kids. They have grown up with it, and it's like this thing that parents use as the candy.
Well, my
Jeez, that's like
Anyway,
like government propaganda.
Tim Cook wrote back.
oh,
Yeah,
really?
I was.
You got an email from T. Cook?
I totally got an email
What
from
did he
T.
say?
Cook. He said, "Thanks for sharing."
Cool story, bro.
Yeah.
His assistant probably did that.
No, you could say that cynically, but it took a long time for him to respond, and it was at 6:30, and I'm saying it was him.
So
It's a moment you can share with your child.
that kid thing, like my daughter, we don't let her use. The only time we use the iPad or the iPhone as a kid distraction tool is like when we're on an airplane or something like that, and we're basically trapped in a small confined area with her for a long time. We do let her look at pictures. So like when at the end of the day, whether we're sitting eating dinner or something like that, like when I come home, Gina will pull out the phone and show, here's the story of what we did today. And now she walks up and says, pictures. And she knows how to work it. Like she knows which app is the Photos app.
Yeah.
She can't unlock the phone yet because there's a code.
Mm-hmm.
But once the phone's open, she can open the Pictures app and she can swipe left and right. She's just 2. Like it's like that is both terrifying and amazing.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what these kids. I mean, the kids that were 3 when the iPhone was new are now 10, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see in a few years what they end up doing. Anything else out of the Apple earnings call? I think that was it. There have been a bunch of other earnings calls. The Samsung one was the other notable one. What HTC said they shipped 60 million phones? No. LG said they shipped 60 million phones, but shipped and sold is a whole different thing. The FCC earlier this week, we talked about this maybe a month ago. Marriott petitioned the FCC to get the right to block Wi-Fi hotspots.
Boo.
Your Wi-Fi style thing. And Glenn Fleischman, who runs a Wi-Fi blog, among other things, had posited that they were going to block it, not on the LTE side, which would be patently illegal under the FCC because you're not allowed to interfere with that band of radio, but on the Wi-Fi side, so that you would be able to have your LTE data coming in, but if you tried to open up your own unauthorized hotspot, it would just get jammed. The FCC has said, hey, blocking Wi-Fi hotspots is prohibited. Don't do that. You're going to get in trouble. Marriott, before they got to the point that they had to actually prohibit it, pulled the request or was backing away from it.
Good.
So, yeah, that's the thing that happened. You know what we don't have on the list while we're talking about douchebag companies? We should talk about Comcast sending the Comcast Time Warner merger is still still happening as far as we can tell. Comcast's lobbying arm sent tons and tons, or presumably tons and tons of letters to local legislatures and state legislatures in the form of a letter that said, hey, I'm Bob Jones, congressman for this district, or state assemblyman for this district. Comcast has been a powerful force for good in my community, yada, yada, yada. Sincerely, please let the Time Warner merger happen. It's not going to be anti-competitive. Your pal, local law dog. They got caught. The Verge did Freedom of Information requests on several of the small the mayor's offices and stuff like that, and got the emails coming in from Comcast that have the drafts. And then the emails that were filed with the FCC, the letters that were filed with the FCC from the local politicians, and they're essentially unchanged in many cases. Like the local politicians would add a sentence or two. This is important because the FCC, there's no voting. The commission votes in the FCC on stuff like the Time Warner Comcast merger, but there's a public request for comment period, and they look at normal letters from normal people, but they also look at weight more heavily, apparently, letters that come from that represent communities. So if your mayor writes a letter, and then that's going to weigh more heavily than your letter that goes in theoretically in the proceedings. The fact that they dug this up, and I mean, just to be clear, lobbyists telling politicians what to say and do is not a new thing, but that it was this overt and this literally like this copy and paste an endeavor is super duper gross. Several people that live in communities that were represented had responded to this and said, "Look, nobody here wants Comcast. It's the thing that we have because it's the only option." This politician isn't representing our best interest in this case. So, I guess he's going to have a bad re-election fight next time, hopefully. And
Ruthless.
It's really bad.
Lazy, corrupt politicians. And also, Comcast renamed one of its customers
Asshole Davis, Asshole Brown.
What?
He tried to cancel.
What are you talking about?
Like in their system?
Yes.
Wow.
Seriously?
Yes. It came out.
So did his bill say Asshole Brown when it came next month?
I think that's what happened.
That's amazing. As part of the broadband hearings, we're establishing a definition of broadband. Obama in the State of the Union made it one of his goals for this year is to work on progressing broadband. Part of that White House broadband report we talked about a few weeks ago, I didn't mention it, but I feel like I should. The appendices of that White House broadband report, which you can get at whitehouse.gov if you search for broadband, it pops right up, is a list of all of the communities in the United States that they know of that have fiber. And it is the best list I've seen to date, because that is information that's surprisingly difficult to find unless the companies that provide it happen to advertise in the yellow pages and you still have a yellow pages. So you can go city by city, county by county, and see whether there's a fiber provider or a dark or somebody that has dark fiber that you can then reach out to and say, hey, we would like to sign up for your fiber service. Please make that happen. I thought it's a super good resource. At the same time, Comcast and the other internet providers are resisting categorizing high-speed broadband, like quantifying the definition of high-speed broadband at 25 megabits a second. So right now, broadband, I think, is anything over 1.5 megabits a second, which is, I don't know if you've used a bad DSL connection recently. It's grim. 1.5 megabits a second is real slow when you're streaming video and even looking at web pages that have lots of images and ads and stuff on them. So 25 megabits seems like a good floor to me.
Yeah.
Did you guys play Homeworld back in the day?
Love Homeworld. I was at PC Gamer when we awarded that Game of the Year.
It was one of the 99s, wasn't it?
It was 1999's Game of the Year.
No, but I mean, it's one of the high.
Oh, it wasn't a 90.
It's a 96, I think.
I
right?
think I did the review. That's actually
Really?
something I'm a little more foggy on. Yeah, I think I did because I did play it, and I remember having strong feelings about it.
It's an amazing game.
It is truly every facet of that game.
With the sequel,
from the
that
music to the voices to the graphics to the story. It's a great game.
The sequel was Cataclysm.
No, Homeworld 2.
Homeworld
2.
2, and that's actually included in this
Oh my
re-release.
goodness.
So yeah, Gearbox, when THQ went under last year before, Gearbox bought Homeworld from them. Gearbox, makers of Borderlands and Brothers in Arms and a bunch of other stuff.
It was a relic game.
It was a relic game, yeah. So there's a Homeworld re-release that's coming out 2 weeks from now.
Is there
I think it's
VR
the 13th.
support?
That's the first thing I asked. No, not yet.
Yeah, Will mentioned that to me. I hadn't even thought about that.
I want.
Come on!
Wouldn't that be great?
We should explain what Homeworld is.
It's 3D RT. The premise, because you can imagine, when was it released? 98?
99.
Late
99? Released 99?
No.
Yeah.
Was it 99?
It was
I thought
99.
I thought it was I thought it was the best year of gaming ever, 1997.
I think it was 99.
Might be 99.
Released in 99, no one thought they could do it, pull it off. A 3D space RTS.
Yeah.
And they did it.
So
I don't even like RTS games because I'm no good at them.
What are the
I can't even win the
achievements?
tutorials.
I'm really curious how many people out there listening now have played Homeworld.
So it was interesting for a bunch of reasons.
15
though.
years old now.
It's a like the thing that you control is a mothership that can then create other ships of varying sizes, capital ship sizes on down to fighters and stuff like that. And each level would start with you warping into a system with some sort of goal: go collect minerals, go find a planet, go do something, yada yada. But you would have your map is a 3D sphere of a solar system size. And of course, they used fancy science fiction propulsion methods, so you didn't have to take 3 months to cross a solar system. But you had to, it was very much a submarine combat game set in space, right? In much the same way that, say, the Wrath of Khan's final sequence is a submarine battle in space. This felt very much the same to me, with fighters and corvettes and the whole thing.
So the thing they did well was
yeah.
one, you could actually navigate the z-axis with groups of units and use that to your advantage strategically. And two, a sense of scale, because the mothership and the ships that come out of it are, range from basically they're 1,000 to 1 size, and you can zoom all the way out and all the way in,
Right.
and micromanage as much as you wanted to.
And because you were the last remnants of your civilization, everything that you finished the previous mission rolled over into the next mission, and that's all you got. Like it's not like you started with a new base each time. Your mothership left the system with
Yeah.
whatever was in it, and if you left stuff behind, it stayed behind. You didn't have it at the start of the next map.
Battlestar
You would
Galactica.
mine new minerals.
It was very much Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, it was a very unforgiving, a difficult game, even for the time. I thought it is a fabulous game,
And
and
great
I highly
multiplayer.
encourage everybody to
So-
try it when it comes out.
so the re-release is coming out in a month, right?
I think it's February 13th.
What were the
Maybe it's the 25th.
25th, I think. Yeah.
what are the spiritual successors to Homeworld that have come out since? If people don't want to go back,
I don't know that there are any. Like if you look at that kind of
Supreme
space,
Commander, kind of in terms of scale.
maybe there was that those Star Trek RTSs, but they were
Armada.
just hex based, so there was no Z axis really that I recall.
The thing is,
Foes the axis.
I would encourage people who don't like RTS games to try this, because I am no good at those games. I've never won one in my life, but this game I finished and I felt very comfortable with.
And they're beautiful. It's beautiful.
So, and the UI for it would be amazing for VR.
Yeah.
Like it's basically like if you imagine the map room in Star Trek, the stellar cartography. Is that right? It's basically like that. But you can click and select and control and all that stuff. I am so excited about playing this.
But
game.
it's a beautiful game if you zoom in too. Like if you get into those
Oh, yeah.
fighters, they're all insanely detailed. They have those beautiful trails that they leave behind them,
Especially-
so you can track them.
especially since it was, I mean, a 1999 game. It's probably each thing is probably 200 polys or 400 polys or something like that. It's probably super small with none of the displacement mapping, all the tricks that we have now.
Well, they've,
Forex
they've upped
game-
all that. Like they've improved
So it's an
everything.
HD
Well, right, yeah.
re-release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Sins of a Solar Empire.
Oh.
Is very similar, but at a larger scale because it's a 4X
Or
game.
Galciv 3, one of those types of games. Sins of a Solar Empire is real time though, right?
It's real time.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's probably your most apt comparison. Super excited about that. Spotify is coming to the PS4. They're replacing Music Unlimited with a Spotify powered. It seems like you still pay Sony, maybe, but it's using Spotify technology.
Huh.
It was a little unclear from the release, and people were excited. I think I might have to switch from RDO to Spotify. That's where I'm at. I know you're a Beats man, Jeremy.
There's literally dozens of us.
Yes.
I am just waiting for Apple to announce what they're going to do with it, and I hope that that'll pay off because I want the Siri integration.
Yeah.
I bet if you email
You
Tim
Siri?
Cook with praise for Beats, you're more likely to get a response.
Yeah.
Than any other.
You should email Dre with praise for Beats. Let's get down to it. He's drdre at apple.com. The other thing that Spotify rolled out, I don't know if this is new. You're a Spotify user, Norm, but I saw it in an ad during a football game or something this weekend or last weekend. Is the touch to preview, the press and hold to preview. So when you're browsing music, whether it's stuff that you have in your collection or not, you can just put your finger on the cover art and it'll play for a second. And then when you let your finger off, it stops playing.
I've never tried
Or
that.
if you slide it around, you should try that. It was really cool. It looked awesome. Like they made an ad for a music service because the
Well, that
feature looked
kind of
cool.
feel like the downfall of RDO.
What-
Too heavy promotion and marketing. My only problem with Spotify is that the organization of your music is not best. Like your playlists, it's difficult to sort through. I just have one folder, one playlist that's like all the songs I'm listening to now, like five
But
other
I think
songs.
I think that's, unless you're a 15-year-old and have a lot of time to make playlists, I think that's a reasonable way to do it, right? I mean, that was always my move on the iPhone. Here's all the songs I'm listening to right now. They're the ones that live on the phone, and then the rest of it is off.
Yeah,
the
but I want to
cloud
go back to
someplace.
something else.
Well, that's the search.
yeah, search.
Here's a fun story. Greece has had some fairly substantial economic woes over the last several years. They've had austerity measures and all sorts of stuff like that. Their currency has basically crashed. They just got a new finance minister, which is a big deal given their current economic status. And it's someone who may be familiar to us. You guys are looking at the list, so you know the surprise. But his name is Yanis Varoufakis, I think. and he was formerly Valve's games economist. He determined prices and relative scarcity of hats in CS:GO.
Wow.
In what?
CS:GO.
Oh, okay.
Maybe TF2 as well.
Yeah.
So
Better not Verifocus.
I remember when they advertised that position.
Yeah.
That was real forward thinking.
it's crazy.
And
Well,
now
they-
he's running finance in
Yeah.
in a country that may default.
I mean, let's be clear. Grecian hats. There's a real growth opportunity there.
These are serious matters.
I
Will.
know this is serious business. Speaking of serious business, some Yahoo crashed another quad into the White House lawn.
Now, I read it was a security official.
It was a guy who was possibly inebriated.
Intel? Was it an Intel employee or something?
I don't
No,
know.
it was an official from another agency.
Ah,
So he was not authorized to be flying there.
yeah.
I read reports that he may have been inebriated.
Yes.
As one is. Don't fly drones, quads, multi-rotors, whatever, drunk. That's bad. It's not cool.
No matter where you are.
Wherever you are.
Yeah, he worked at an intelligence agency.
Yeah, and he
Oh, boy.
put it into put a what looked like the picture that everybody showed was a Phantom 2.
It looks exactly. Well, he had the. Here's the important thing.
He even had the prop.
had the prop guards. he
Yeah, I
had the
thought that
prop
was-
guards.
He was flying
That
with
was
protection.
important. So maybe he ran into the vortex.
Oh, you think he had
Maybe
the Jeremy
descended
problem?
too quickly.
We don't need to call it the Jeremy problem.
Well, you're the first person I know that had it.
He worked for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. This is like right out of the Veep.
So what was he doing flying it at the White House?
Seems like he was joyriding, bro.
Can you just do that?
No,
Employee
no,
without duty.
that is frowned upon
Personal
with
item.
extreme prejudice. He,
This could just be a cover-up. Maybe Obama was flying it.
It wasn't even his own quadcopter. It was his friend's quadcopter.
well, but they're not friends anymore. So the quad was confiscated. He's presumably is going to be in some trouble, I assume. Probably his friend too. Here's some pro tips. If you live in or near the Washington D.C. area, don't fly a fucking quad in Washington D.C.
Well, you can't now.
You weren't supposed to before.
Phantom is going to GPS disable flying near the White House now.
Is
Well,
it all just near the White House,
And
not all of DC?
presumably Congress and the mall and they should just lock all that shit down.
They probably, yeah, I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
Now
So
they
they've
can do that because they control the software the GPS software on
My
the
3D
quads.
robotics shit, I can fly anywhere, man.
But yeah, anyone who builds their own quad, the stuff that almost looks scary looking, maybe less readily accessible, that you can't protect against that. So you gotta believe that officials of the White House have drafted up anti-multi-rotor measures.
I have to imagine that there's going to be pop-up turrets, like RTS style pop-up turrets. You think about it; these things are relatively small. They have weak radios and lots of antennas. Just blast them with microwaves until the
it's
radios
like-
fry and they crash.
It's like that paintball turret gun we saw at Maker Faire. Why else was there a White House Maker Faire last year?
That's true.
It's because they wanted to
Anti-quad
get all
defense.
the anti-quad defense.
They need a
makers.
little local SDI, get some laser beams mounted
Yeah.
to the roof of the White House for the quads.
Did you guys
Star
see?
Wars all over again.
Yep.
This was something I saw over the holiday. Did you see the railgun video? The Navy has ship-mounted railguns.
Ship mount. I saw the one in a big house, in a big warehouse, but I didn't know they had them on the ship.
So they haven't. I don't know if they've actually mounted them on ships, but this is a
Oh.
prototype that is due to be mounted on a ship.
Yeah.
It is literally the most terrifying thing I've ever seen.
They had this in Transformers too.
And the Eraser.
And Eraser, they were handheld.
Yes, that was the
Dual-wielding.
revolution. Yeah, Arnold could dual wield those things. It went really, really fast and made shit
Yeah.
explode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like really fast.
yeah.
I don't know if you appreciate how fast it went.
But they're massive cannons.
They're massive cannons. The benefit, though, over existing, like the theory is that this might bring the battleships back, because the knock against battleships is that in order for them to be effective, air power has kind of rendered them irrelevant in a lot of cases, because you can fire a battleship shell 17 miles, 18 miles, but you can fly an FA-18 200 miles, bomb the shit out of something, or cruise missiles even further. The idea, though, is with a railgun you could fire 100 miles a long way.
Wow.
And because there's no explosive in the ship, they don't blow up as good as battleships traditionally did when they got hit by something. So you think about it, a battleship is basically a container for fuel and a couple of big things of steel and explosive. And then there's also massive like sandbags full of gunpowder
Magazine.
that make that blow up. And if somebody gets a lucky shot in the magazine, boom, 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 it's bad news for everyone.
100-mile range is insane.
Yeah, I don't. 100-mile range is what I remember, so that could be.
You'd think
that
the
could be,
curvature of the Earth would affect it at that point.
Well, but the thing is, we're really good at math now.
Yeah, but how do you aim through the ocean?
You
gotta lead that shot.
The question I have is, are those projectiles going to be smart, or do they move so fast? Because the way the projectiles look like they work is they have a casing that gets them out of the muzzle of the gun, right? And then the casing kind of splits off like a tank sabot shell or something like that, and there's fins. So I don't know. Are those casings? And if you know about this stuff, let us know. We'd be curious. Are those then directed? Like, are they smart projectiles? Do the fins steer to aim them at a target, or do they accelerate at such a pace that our technology can't survive that kind of acceleration, and they just move on inertia, and you presumably are going fast enough that you just need to get close? I don't know. I'm really curious about this. Obviously not curious enough to look it up after I saw the video, but curious. What do you guys? So the Phantom ban, obviously, is probably a smart decision on their part.
I think the whole GPS lockout system that DJI has implemented is genius, because it's going to give them an edge with the FAA, and they're sort of trailblazing.
And they lobby, yeah.
They're trailblazing that whole space, and I think that a lot of people the FAA is going to use them as an example of what everyone else needs to do.
I don't think the quadcopter guys that are writing that software in Prague or wherever are going to be like, yeah, man, we should totally follow these U.S. regulations. And then they shoot the bird at the computer screen.
Well, yeah, but then they'll be illegal, and whatever happens.
Yeah. Thoughts, Norm?
No.
Don't fly your quad by the White House.
Don't be stupid. Treat them like they are. I mean, it's scary to think what these things are.
It's essentially a flying cinder block in the most safe mode, right?
Yep. I mean, the thing is, we've had RC planes for decades.
Yeah.
But they
didn't have payload capacities like these things have either.
But this guy's just flying a Phantom. I'm just saying that they're accessible now. They're as easy to fly as, it's like going from like an automatic car or like a stick car to an automatic or something.
That's true. Office for Android tablets came out early this morning. It seems like it's basically the same as the iOS version that came out a couple of weeks ago. Same limitations. You can't use it for commerce if you don't have a commercial license, yada, yada, yada. Have you downloaded it yet, Norm?
I have not.
Are you going to download it?
Oh, yes.
And then the last thing I have on news is this Oculus Story Studio. I didn't watch this. I read the dev reports, but I haven't seen any video out of it.
I don't think there are.
Can you explain what it is a little bit?
Sundance was this week, and Oculus was there, and they announced that they have been, I guess in secret, they've built a team to develop interactive VR movies. And so it's an interactive animated space. You're in the world, you watch the movie, and then the movie actually adapts to how you interact with it, the length of the movie.
How does that happen?
Look at things you do.
Things wait for triggers.
Yes.
For you to be looking at them for things to happen.
So it's not just a movie, it's rendered?
Yeah, it's 3D rendered. At least this initial one is. I assume that they all will be.
Right. So it's kind of this first foray into interactive storytelling in a virtual space, which Google has had. Motorola had some of this stuff with the Android. They had two or three interactive movies where you kind of pan the phone around, use the IMU in your phone to follow a character. But this is with your eyes and being immersed in a space.
There's been experiments like that from third parties,
that
have been interesting, and a lot of people like them because they don't require a gamepad or any kind of handheld interface.
They're passive.
Yeah.
But I think filmmakers are going to have to figure it out. Without knowing how this movie plays, because we haven't seen it yet.
It's called Lost.
Yes.
And it seems like that's taken, that name.
Yeah, you would think.
I don't know. I don't know if filmmakers want people to spin around 360 while watching a movie. I don't know if viewers want to be, even if you're on a wireless, on a swiveling chair, to spin around 360 to follow along.
It's tough, right? Like that whole. Well, the fact that it's rendered means it's more feasible than, say, putting a 360-degree camera someplace.
Yeah.
and then trying to shoot something with no production side, right?
But just from a storytelling aspect, I mean,
It's like
movie
performance
viewing
theater.
is not a lot of performance theater is 360 all the time.
Okay, so it's like Sleep No More or a puzzle room or something like that, where you're going into a building full of interactivity, and your experience is dependent on what you look at, right?
And to the point of performance theater, the reason it's not 360 is because you can't do that with an audience. But if you could be the one person sitting on a chair on stage, that would be an honor.
Well, but you know how Sleep No More works, right? You go into a room in Manhattan someplace, and then there's this story that gets told throughout a whole building, and you basically walk from room to room throughout the evening and witness different parts, and then it's up to you to kind of put it together. I think
San
that
Francisco has something similar called Speakeasy.
Yeah.
Like dozens of actors working together at once.
right, and it's but there's a lot at Speakeasy. Do you wear masks like at Sleep No More? Okay, so like basically you know who the actors are because they're not wearing masks, and all the audience people are wearing masks, and you're not supposed to really interact with other people. I'm super interested. Like I think that's the model, like that's the immediately apparent model to me for Oculus, for VR style theater experiences.
I think I think there will be experiences like that, absolutely. But I think who knows? My feeling is I think the things that are going to catch on are not necessarily going to be those things. It's tough to get out of the model of the sitting down, relaxing, and just maybe moving your head. You know, even if we're watching IMAX, just left and right a little bit.
I wonder.
Spatial sound will help.
I wonder how they're going to do. I just wonder how they're going to do, like how they're going to pace it, and how they're like what the tool chain is for making that kind of. If it's a game experience, then that's different. You just use normal game tools. But if there's some element of actual 3D video embedded in there, then there's no real tool chain for making a 360-degree video sphere that you can then edit and do audio mixing and all that kind of stuff on top of. So it's a. I really want to see this in person.
Yeah, I do too. I wish they would release it for the DK too, but of course they're not.
I understand why they wouldn't.
They want to control that whole message, and they want to present it to people using the best technology
well,
they can.
and the audio is super important because you're
I
not going to
suppose
get
so.
cues without
Yeah.
audio. So
You know, one interesting thing that they mentioned about this is that in developing this, they realized that a lot of film conventions, such as a cut, which is used as the most standard transition in every movie,
yeah.
feels more like a teleport in this kind of film going experience.
Well, and that's the like
You're way more. You feel it.
yes, you feel exactly.
and how you deal with camera motion,
Right.
when the cameras are your eyes. I mean,
This is
that,
why I
that
think
makes
that-
people that really sets people's nausea off in a lot of cases.
It's why
So-
exactly I think that we're not going to see things that are going to be dramatically different initially than
Like
what film has practiced for 100 years.
I think we'll even go back further than that and go to, early film where the camera didn't move and, there were no cuts because it was just they were basically like short
heavy.
vignettes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what we'll see at first.
Well, this is a 5-minute movie. It's directed by a Pixar director who directed The Blue Umbrella for Pixar. I don't even remember.
one of the shorts.
I must have been, but
It's one of the early.
which one is that?
That's an early
I don't know the Blue Umbrella.
Blue Umbrella. As somebody who's been ripping a lot of Pixar Blu-rays lately, Blue Umbrella, I believe, predates Jerry's Game and.
You're thinking of Red Stream.
Maybe that's right.
I don't know what Blue Umbrella is. It's not that one with all the paper airplanes.
2005. No, that's not it. That's a Bollywood film.
While we figure this out,
Yeah, well, let's take a quick break. And,
It was that cute one, yeah, with the two umbrellas, and the blue umbrella wants to hook up with the red umbrella.
which one was it attached to? While we figure that
It's
out,
Monsters University.
Okay, which I didn't see.
Let's take a quick break and have a word from our sponsors. Today's episode of This Is Only a Test is brought to you by SkillFeed.
SkillFeed, it's a new service by Shutterstock, and it's basically an online repository of video tutorials, lessons. They have many thousands of them, and you watched a couple videos, right?
65,000 different lessons in all sorts of stuff: web design, productivity software, all the stuff that stuff you may know how to do, some stuff you may not know how to do. I watched a video series about watercolor painting for the beginner, which is something that I've been doing because my child is doing it, and I feel like I can take some pro tips home for her now as a result of this.
I looked through the photography section. I like that they separated between beginner, intermediate, and advanced lessons, and also within each video, some of them can go for like 4 hours long. They actually timestamp and inventory and segment all the parts of the lesson. I watched one on drone photography, and I thought it was really useful.
So normally when you sign up for SkillFeed, you get a 7-day free trial. If you use our offer code and go to skillfeed.com/tested, then you will get a 30-day free trial to try it out, find out what you like, learn something new, on us.
Binge watch some videos.
And now back to This Is Only a Test. And we're back. Norman Chan,
Yes.
it's time to talk about what we have been testing.
All right.
What have we been testing?
We installed the Windows 10 technical preview version 9926
We're insiders.
earlier this week. Video should be up tomorrow about it to show off some of the changes. It's something that everyone can install. It looks good. It's as a free upgrade is something that it looks like will have no problem upgrading to.
Yeah, I mean,
No qualms.
we talked about it in the video a lot, but if they had made any effort seemingly to integrate the modern stuff and the traditional desktop with Windows 8, I think that would have been received a lot better. Because
I don't think there would have been a modern step. This is a half measure to. They could have got rid of the modern stuff completely, and they didn't. And that probably will be the biggest complaint with Windows 10.
I bet at this point
There's
they can't
no way
get
they
rid of
could
the
have-
modern stuff.
Right, and
I bet
there's-
they have enough people using it that they can't get rid of it.
And the reason they have a whole bunch of people using it is because they went full steam ahead with it. And so if they had wanted, there is no world where Windows 10 as it exists could look this way if modern did not exist.
They could have done it the other way. They could have rolled out modern apps, or they could have rolled out the App Store as a midlife update to Windows 7. I mean, I know that there's probably display model stuff that didn't work with Windows 7 and modern apps, but that seems like something that's fixable on a Microsoft scale. If they had rolled that out as, hey, here's a thing that you get for free, and here's a new way to interact with your computer, and those things ran in Windows and that stuff from the beginning,
I don't think it
think
would
the
have ran in Windows.
uptake would have been much better.
There's no reason those things, the way they're designed, the way they run in Windows now, modern apps, is a compromise.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, this seems like a pretty dramatic improvement. The technical preview, if you're thinking about installing it, I would strongly encourage you to put it in a virtual machine rather than put it on your main computer. It is much rougher than, say, the Windows 7 and Windows 8 betas were at this same time frame. And the driver ecosystem isn't there yet. So all that stuff is pretty rough. So feel free to do it. Make sure you have your backups so you can restore if you need to. It's interesting to look at. There's a lot of neat stuff, and they're addressing my biggest peeve with Windows and OS 10 for that matter, which is a lot of machines in the era of SSDs have multiple storage devices in one computer, and now they let you say, okay, this is the computer that we're using. This is the drive that we're using for music, photos, video, all of those individually. This is where we're putting games. This is where applications go. So you can default things to the drive that they make most sense on, which I think is great. Norm, you've been using the Echo.
I got my Echo.
Oh, no way.
I got my Echo.
Damn.
Amazon was so nice.
Alexa. Alexa.
They delayed my Echo
Yeah.
and then said, oh, because it's delayed, we'll give you $10 credit. And then it arrived the next day.
Wait, what?
And so I got a free $10 credit.
That's great.
That's great.
Fantastic. I use it regularly in the office.
You are using
my
okay.
office.
So ours ended up in the gap between our kitchen and our dining room because that is where we find ourselves using it in the kitchen a lot because it is now the home of our shopping list, grocery shopping list.
Ah.
And we also use it for kitchen timers.
It's your $100 timer.
It is a voice activated timer for food and laundry, but the shopping list thing super key.
Cool.
Because you know how you always run out of stuff and you're like, oh man, we got to get more flour. We should put flour on the list. And then when you're at the grocery store, you're like, man, I knew we needed.
Yep.
Was it? And then you end up with 3 bags of sugar instead of 1 bag of flour.
So when you tell her to add sugar to your shopping
Yes.
list, how does she choose the brand?
I don't buy it from Amazon. I just have an app. The Echo app on your phone has a shopping list in it that has the words that you tell it. So if you say, Alexa, add bagel bites to my shopping list, it'll add bagel bites to your shopping list. If you say, Alexa, add sugar to your shopping list, it'll yada yada.
The app also keeps track of everything in that Alexa, the Echo has listened to, been activated to listen to.
Yeah.
So you come home and you can just scroll through. Oh, that's interesting interaction that someone had with Alexa.
Oh, so you're spying on your roommates?
You can do that. I keep it in my office and I use it as a wonderful self-contained digital radio streamer.
I wish it supported RDO or Spotify for my streaming stuff, because like the ability to say whatever play, like I realized after using the Echo for a while that if Sonos had a voice activation thing, I would use it much more.
Is so useful.
Like the thing that's neat about what Sonos does,
Android doesn't have that?
not really.
I would think they'd do that.
Well, Sonos isn't an Android or iOS; it's just speakers.
Yeah, but I just figured Android is open enough for them to tap into the voice activation.
It's not like once you have to make the action of tapping, unlocking the phone or tablet or whatever, and then getting into the app, like that's already taken too long. Like the thing that's amazing about this is you can bypass all of that shit and say, Alexa, play Jack White, and if you don't have that in your Amazon Cloud library, it just goes and gets it from or whatever's closest to it from their store or from their streaming service that you get from your Prime service, and like that ubiquity and that kind of the fact that there's no seams between that and you is pretty amazing. Like Norm said, you can listen to NPR. Does it listen to streams or radio? Is it pulling radio station streams, or can you listen?
So
to
it has two stream
Terry Gross?
services. It is TuneIn or iHeartRadio, and depending on where you live, your radio station, your local radio station, public radio station, music station, may be affiliated with one of those. So I'm fortunate enough that our local NPR station, KQED, is in TuneIn. So I can say, Alexa, play KQED with TuneIn, and then it will do KQED FM on TuneIn.
Do you even have to say with TuneIn, or will it?
You have to, because then it doesn't know what app to look for it in. But for example, specific shows, This American Life is on iHeartRadio, so you can just say, play This American Life, and I think it will know that because it's one of the featured stations.
Is there an audio out? Like a headphone jack
There is
or
not.
Bluetooth connectivity?
There's Bluetooth connectivity.
But only in.
Only in.
But not out.
Oh, okay, that's too bad. It'd be nice to hook that up to your stereo.
It sounds good enough. Like it sounds it's funny, Norm, because you have literally spent $100 on a thing that replicates the boombox that my grandmother always had in her kitchen.
Yeah,
it was just
or
tuned
$2 radio.
to the local NPR station.
Yeah.
But it's voice activated.
That's the key.
And it has LEDs.
The LEDs, I'm not as
and
keen
I can
on.
say volume up. Alexa, shut up. Alexa,
Stop.
Volume 4.
Yeah.
Or just the 5-minute news brief that I like every morning.
It has I use the news brief every day. It turns out.
Is that an Amazon provided news brief?
They get
No,
it.
it's
They get it from
NPR.
different services. Yeah.
And BBC.
I'm Lakshmi Singh. Here's today's news.
And but it starts it on demand.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You say, and you can set it to play when you wake up, but yeah, it starts
Oh,
on demand.
wow. That's neat.
So when you listen to NPR at the top of the hour, they do the 5-minute news brief.
Can she be on an alarm clock?
Yeah, you can set it like that's how it knows when you wake up. Is
That's
it's your
cool.
alarm clock. What I really want is it to hook into smart things, so it knows that when I walk into the living room and I've turned on the coffee maker, I want it to know that now is when I want to hear the news. Like the coffee's been made, I'm in the living room. Give me some news. Hit me. But I mean, for the time being, I'll have to say play the news.
Yeah.
It's a really it is a super janky thing in a lot of ways, in that it doesn't tie into all the services and stuff that you want it to tie into. But it is also incredibly interesting because that ability to bypass the 4 steps of logging in, so finding the app, selecting the app, going to the thing that you want in the app, using voice is a real strong case for voice as interface for mundane or common tasks.
Jarvis.
Yeah.
It feels like the future.
Or the Star Trek computer.
Or the Star Trek computer, yes.
And you can ask it things. It's not as smart as
I don't like
as
asking
Google
it.
now.
I just want to do things for
If
me.
Google made a tower, an information tower like this, would you buy it?
Probably.
Yeah.
I wish I could. I wish I could do.
That's something I want in the car.
Car would be amazing. Well, you kind of have it in the car with OK Google if you plug your phone in.
I think the thing that makes Echo work is the microphone and the speaker.
What I desperately want is to be hooked in with the smart thing stuff, so I can say, okay, so it and the Harmony remote, so I can say, hey Alexa, we're gonna watch a movie, and then it dims the lights, puts on the Blu-ray player, switches the right inputs on the screen, turns the volume down or up as I want. Like this as a user interface to the smart home stuff makes the smart home stuff much more valuable than having to the beautiful thing about a light switch is you don't need to use your phone to work a light switch, right? If you could do voice control for that stuff, it adds a whole nother layer of both laziness and awesome.
You mentioned remotes. I just reminded me I backed this cool remote on Kickstarter called the Neo.
Oh.
NEEO. It's worth checking out. They're about to cross $1 million.
NEO.
Yeah, it's a $200 remote, but it does everything.
I forgot to talk about this, but I played Exploding Kitties while I was in Chicago. I met one of the guys who makes the game, Ilan. I can't remember his last name, but he was one of the Xbox designers. Exploding Kitties is awesome. It's a super good, like, here's the first game we're going to play in our board game night kind of game, like the cold open.
My family only does one game.
The cold open, I think. Oh yeah.
No, it's okay. It's like a 5 to 10 minute game.
Wow.
There's a little bit of bluffing.
Yeah.
There's a random element, so like the hardcore German people aren't going to be into it, but it's very fun and moves very quickly and is super fast to learn.
Is it kid friendly?
Yeah, I think you play it with kids.
Unlike Love Letter, that's not kid friendly.
Why is Love Letter not kid friendly?
The whole backstory is about adultery.
You don't have to tell them.
Murder.
They don't know what adultery and murder are. Just words to small children.
You know what's funny is I was looking for a birthday present for my 5-year-old daughter, and on Amazon's gift list, which has the 5 to 8-year-old girls category, there's a games category, and the icon for that category is Cards Against Humanity for 5 to 8-year-olds.
Oh, that's because Cards Against Humanity is the #1 selling board game
got
on Amazon.
Yeah, but if you go into that category, it's not listed.
That's probably best for the best.
Did you see that the Oatmeal guy also has a Kickstarter for a card game?
That is the card game.
Oh,
that's
that's
Exploding Kitties.
Exploding Kitties.
Yeah,
Oh.
he did the art for it.
Full circle.
Yeah.
That's one I won't back because everyone else is gonna have it.
Everyone will have that game. Yeah, like they hit $1 million in like 12 hours or something insane.
Wow. We should do a card game, guys.
Yeah, no kidding.
Do we know any really ultra popular internet artists?
Yes, we do. How much do I have to pay for this Neo thing? We'll receive one Neo brain and download our app for free so you control. No, I want the whole thing.
I think you need.
It's $200.
That's
I
too much.
told you it was $200.
No.
Yeah, well, okay.
But it does everything.
I like everything.
It connects to your smart stuff.
If it's better than my Harmony, then I'm interested in it.
I think it's going to be. You should read the thing. Hit the remind me and check it out.
Yeah, I will. Too late, already pledged. No, I'm just kidding. We have got other stuff on the list. Grim Fandango HD came out. Speaking of HD remakes, I never played Grim Fandango. I was a Sierra adventure game guy when I was in the 90s.
Oh, me too. There are not many of us, if I feel. I mean, I felt at the time there were, but now everybody is a LucasArts guy.
I played Phantasmagoria and Gabriel Knight and Tex Murphy, which I guess was Dynamics maybe, not Sierra, but
So much Leisure Suit Larry.
there was a guy on the floor in my dorm that had Leisure Suit Larry, and everybody one night got drunk when he got it, and we were sitting in his room drinking beer playing Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah.
It was wildly disappointing.
that's a
It was
good
much
time.
less clever than you expected it to be.
Oh no, I liked it. I was all into those old ones: the Space Quest, Police Quest,
Yes.
Heroes Quest, King's Quest.
Space Quest, pretty amazing.
That's probably my favorite series.
So
But I never played Grim Fandango.
I never played Maniac Mansion. I never played Dave the Tentacle. I never played Sam and Max Hit the Road.
Oh my god.
None of those games. I never played any of those games.
Yeah, Full Throttle.
I bought Full Throttle and I returned
Monkey
it because I
Island?
thought it sucked.
Oh,
Monkey
Sorry,
Island?
sorry, Tim. I hope he's not listening. I never played Monkey Island.
Oh my goodness.
All of those. I played The Dig. I liked The Dig.
I never.
that's
played
funny.
the
Yeah,
game.
me and you were spot on. I played The Dig too. But
Dig
it's
was a bundle game.
because that was the Spielberg production.
Yeah. Did you play Indiana Jones and the Secret of Atlantis or whatever that was?
Not all the way through.
See, I played the first maybe hour of that. I didn't like that combinatorial kind of adventure game, and I think I probably didn't like the humor. Like, I think my sense of humor was not advanced enough to appreciate the subtlety of some of the jokes. Gene and I are hot seating Grim Fandango right now.
Oh, cool.
We sit on the couch and we kind of talk it over and play. We did the same thing for Walking Dead. We played a little bit of some other Telltale games that way.
I noticed The Verge called Grim Fandango Remastered the best remaster ever, and Ars Technica said it sucks. So I don't know who to believe.
I'd trust ours. It's
Oh, yeah?
always where I lean.
All right.
Who wrote it? Kyle wrote it at ours.
I don't know.
Okay. I think so. I'm playing in the living room with a controller. Works really well for that. The experience is like it is a 4x3 game. They didn't stretch it out. They didn't draw extra canvases in the background or anything like that. It looks really nice. The writing is still really good. It seems like they took the audio masters and kind of like the master recordings and remastered the audio. So
Wow.
the dialogue sounds great.
I'm amazed they still had that.
That seems like the kind of thing you'd keep.
Well, I would hope so, but
Yeah.
you never know with these guys.
It's-
These things get lost.
It's really funny. It's a funny game. I think Grim Fandango was on the very tail end of all those adventure games, right?
It's 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what is it, like $10 or $25 or something like that?
I don't know. Didn't you buy it?
Yeah, but sometimes I just hit the button. Like, I'll play that. Okay. Monitors is the next thing on the list.
Oh yeah.
You have a new monitor.
Norm said you were playing with the new toy.
I set up a 34-inch 21:9 LG monitor. It's an IPS display.
21 by 9.
It's 36 something by 1400 pixels.
1440.
1440 pixels.
So it's like having a 27-inch 2560 by 1440 display and a another 19-inch on the side.
So I set it up, and you did some Premiere stuff last night because I had some work to do last night on the required Premiere. It was great for that because I had my timeline was really, really wide and long. I had a full, basically, like the better part of a 1080p window in there.
You're doing things the software guys never even got to see when they designed Premiere.
Yeah, pretty much.
I would think, unless they're crossing multiple
monitors.
Yeah.
But Premiere is set up to work with multiple monitors. Like
Right.
you can put your preview window on a second monitor if you want. That works great. Highly recommended if you have a 1080p monitor set next to your main monitor. It's less vertical resolution and it's much shorter than my Dell 30-inch panel, my 2560 by 1600 panel, which actually, like, the thing that I realized is very quickly is that I need another some sort of software tool to let me basically treat that span when I'm doing productivity stuff as if it's two monitors.
That's what Jeremy was saying, and especially for games.
And games, so I fired up Saints Row Get Out of Hell last night, which is the new Saints Row 4 in Hell game, and I played some Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 had real resolution problems at that resolution.
Because some games lock in FOV?
So it looked like the FOV setting for Far Cry affected the UI. So Far Cry is aware of wide resolutions. You can set a 21:9 aspect ratio, and your UI stays locked in the same place it would on a 16:9 screen or a 16:10 screen. Like it's like, here's UI, and then
That's
the
good.
rest is wings, which
Yeah.
is what you want.
Yes.
I found it really hard to find the crosshair. I had to make the crosshair bigger and a bolder color because I just couldn't see it. It was too small. The frame rate, I also had frame rate problems with a 780 Ti at that resolution on Far Cry 4. So I had to make, I need to press that optimize button in my
To be
GeForce
expected.
experience.
That's not
Yeah,
surprising.
because I mean, I was running it at 1080p before probably
Yeah.
and scaling up. I kind of like the vertical height. I miss the vertical height. I'd rather have a little bit lower pixel density and a little more vertical height. I'm going to try moving it closer to me because it's a little bit far away, but it's curved. Also, this is probably important to mention.
Interesting.
It's just a real gentle curve.
Wow.
And that I actually quite like on this at 3 feet from the monitor. Like, that seems really good.
What is the input? Can it take two DVIs, or do you need to have DisplayPort?
It's no DVI.
It's just DisplayPort.
It's DisplayPort. There's two HDMIs.
HDMI 2.0?
I assume so because you don't need two of them.
Oh, so you can use a single HDMI cable.
Yeah, and it has a scaler as well. So like it'll run 1080p scaled up to be the right vertical height, and then you'll just have black bars on the side.
60 hertz?
It seems like 60 hertz. I haven't, like, their spec sheet for it is still in Korean. It's that new.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to look and see.
Hope it's not 30.
I saw some weird jumping in Far Cry that I was like super early to talk about this because normally I wouldn't probably talk about it when I've spent this little time with it, but since you brought it up, I had some weird hitching in Far Cry that I was worried might be because it's a 30 hertz panel and I was running at 60 hertz. there's ways you can test that, and I'll do that this weekend.
Ask questions about it below.
Yeah, if you have questions about it, I think probably it's a content. I think it's probably going to be a better experience for content creation than for games and stuff like that.
What about movies?
Movies. So I watched Source Code last night, which is I want to say 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio movie. I put Grand Budapest Hotel, which jumps aspect ratios all the way through. I don't have any. I need to find a CinemaScope 2.35 to 1 movie that's on Blu-ray, because most of my, like, I have Lawrence of Arabia, but it's DVD and that looks like hot garbage scaled up this much. I need to find something that's a wider aspect ratio that's on Blu-ray.
And sometimes like movies that switch, they have IMAX, where they go from wide to 16 by 9 on the Blu-ray, for example. You just get black bars. It doesn't do.
Like on Dark Knight, for example.
Yeah, it's not anamorphic.
Well, the whole movie's rendered at a single aspect ratio, I would think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that actually they can on Blu-ray. They can change. It can change aspect ratios on the fly throughout the film.
Wouldn't that cause some TVs to
The players know how to
get
adapt
fuzzy?
for it. No, the players adjust.
add the black bars.
The players add the black bars as necessary.
I'm surprised at that.
Wow.
So when I ripped Grand Budapest, it looked at it chose the wrong aspect ratio for the film, and I had to go in and manually set because it changes throughout. And it looked like the the Academy ratio stuff, which is like 2.35 to 1 or something. I can't remember, 1.71 to 1 or something. Those bits were anamorphic on the disc. There were no black bars rendered into that video. It didn't look like, but I'd have to look to be sure.
Yeah.
Norm, how are you liking your 4K Dell?
I love it.
We didn't talk about this yet, I don't think, on the podcast.
Oh, we did.
Did we?
Multiple times.
Okay.
I'm not going back to
What is it? 25? It's
38 something
by 16
by
2250 or something. It's basically double vertical resolution.
Yes. Take 1920 multiply by 2 and take 1080 multiply that by 2.
So it's essentially 4 1080p screens
Yes.
on one giant screen. How big is it? 30 inches?
27.
Do you find it too small?
I wish it was 30 inches.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want it to be 40, and there are 4K 40 monitors, 40-inch 4K 60 Hz monitors come out this year. But I think 27 is just a little bit too small.
Any dead pixels?
No dead pixels. And
No
I believe
problem.
Dell has a 0 dead pixel return policy.
Wow.
I kind of wish that this LG monitor was bigger. I might put it on a boom so I can get it real close, like closer to me. Because I mean the pixel density is high enough that you should be able to ride right up on it. But where it sits on my desk naturally is a little bit far away.
Yep.
I want more field of vision.
ARMs are
filled.
good anyway. They
Yeah.
make desk space beneath the monitor.
Yes. The Inspire. Norm, you went flying. Adam got his DJI Inspire the other day.
Yes.
The Inspire 1, is that right?
Inspire 1. And we went flying for just a little bit earlier this week. There will be video of that next week. Jeremy, I thought you might have questions about the Inspire 1.
You did not prep me, Norm. In questions, let me see.
The thing I want to say about people who might have flown the Phantom 2s, the Vision Plus, and have some experience with that app, the Inspire is a whole different class of quadcopter. There's so many more things you can configure and control. It's not just that the camera is better and you get better feed because it's light bridge as opposed to Wi-Fi, but they're just
All right, one thing
configure so many things.
One thing about the Phantom that I don't like is controlling the pitch. It requires me to touch my phone.
Or use
On the camera.
Or use
on-
gyro. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't use gyro though. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So can you change the pitch with the Inspire?
Yes.
Using the
So
RC.
2 ways to control the camera on the Inspire 1. One is with a master and slave remote. So a secondary remote gets control over the camera. And gets the same feed, so both people get the same video feed plus UI. So you can control the pitch by touching the screen and then dragging, which we did in the video we did at CES. Or you can actually also use the jog dial on the remote, and you can configure the jog dial sensitivity.
Ooh, that's neat.
So you can use the jog dial to slow your turns and pans and tilts.
Is it an analog dial anyway?
It's a spring dial.
Yeah. So if I pulled it a little bit, is it like the boosted controller?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. It's like that type of spring dial, analog spring dial. There are also 2 pinky buttons on the back of the remote for the camera. One locks it back, and they're customizable. By default, you can lock it into
Forward?
forward,
Okay.
which is very useful.
Yeah.
When you're flying, if you have moved the camera at all and you know where you're flying toward.
That's great.
And two, this other button switches between the follow mode and the free flying mode.
Tell me about follow mode.
Follow mode, I believe, is the default mode where you're pointing the quadcopter is where the camera will want to follow, and there will be some sway. So if you turn the quadcopter, if you yaw left to the right, for example, clockwise,
Yep.
you can turn the quadcopter to a certain point, and then the camera will stay fixed. And then once it reaches the edge of frame, it will gently move toward the center.
Can I fly over my subject? And it will track it?
No, it's
Okay.
only left and right.
Okay.
And then the free fly mode is where the camera just stays exactly where it's been pointed.
Yeah.
And then you can fly around it up to, I believe, 270 degrees.
Did you get a chance to fly dual? Where
We did.
You're the cameraman?
We did, and that's our video next week will be about flying dual, about trying to be one person being a cameraman.
Is that the future?
Yes.
I mean, if you look at professionals who are, for the most part, either building their own stuff or buying off-the-shelf stuff, usually you have one person flying and one person operating the camera.
Sounds like a
gimbal.
lot of fun.
I think for any type of like production environment where you need to get a specific shot and you plan it well enough in advance with a lot of communication,
Yeah.
then that's going to be the way to do it. But if you're as a hobbyist and you just want to like take photos and be an aerial photographer, there's enough control in the one remote that you can also
Yeah.
capture some really
Well,
cool footage.
I mean, if you're just taking photos, you get to the place you want to take the photo from, and then you can switch over and adjust.
If you want to take
Yeah.
a video sequence by yourself, if you
Yes.
I want to do this type of pan or this type of lift over, a subject, then you can do that by yourself.
Hey, so we have a breaking update on a news story we talked about a
Sweet.
little while ago. As part of the 2015 Broadband Progress Report, the Federal Communications Commission has voted to change the definition of broadband by raising the minimum download speeds needed from 4 megabits per second to 25 megabits per second, with 3 megabits per second up, according to The Verge.
Okay.
This effectively...
That's not enough up.
No, it is not. But this effectively triples the number of U.S. households without access to broadband. Currently, 6.3% of U.S. households don't have access to broadband under the 1 megabits per second threshold, which was the previous one, while another 13.1 don't have access under the new 25 megabits per second downstream threshold. Tom Wheeler was vehement in his support. 80% of this is the quote. When 80% of Americans can access 25.3, that's a standard. We have a problem that 20% can't. We have a responsibility to that 20%, period. So there we go.
Good.
Broadband, if you have less than 25 megabits per second, you don't have broadband. I'm sorry. Go bitch at your internet provider.
You are officially a high ping bastard.
Yes. Go get on your 56K, noob.
You can have high broadband and also really crappy latency.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
That's true.
Also, HPB really didn't make sense.
High ping bastard?
Yeah. LPB made the most sense because the people with the fast connections would have a strategic advantage in multiplayer games.
The HPB leagues were just so the HPBs only didn't pollute the low PB leagues.
No one wanted to be an HPV.
No.
Why would
Sometimes you were
call
just
him a
stuck.
bastard?
They're all bastards.
It's HP. It's
Yeah,
a
everybody's
high-ping
a
loser.
It's a default.
High-ping
You
loser
default
and
to
low-ping
bastard.
bastard.
Maybe. HPL doesn't have the same ring
It
to
never
it,
made
though.
sense to me.
I was proud of being an HPB for a while. I was playing Quake 1 on a modem forever, and you learn to predict.
You played Quake 1, not Quake World?
Yeah.
Jesus.
You learn to predict other people's movements and your own movements.
I remember this.
Like 150 milliseconds ahead of time.
250 usually,
250
yeah.
milliseconds
Quarter
ahead
of a
time.
second.
So you're doing things before they even happen
and your
on screen.
own movements.
In
because
order
the
in order,
responses,
and
yeah.
you win that way. And then when you get on a low ping, you do have an advantage.
For like 2 weeks, and then you get used to it,
Yeah,
and
that's
then you're
true.
weak
That's true.
again.
That's true. But that was a good 2 weeks.
When I was in college, I ran Half-Life and Quake servers in the computer labs surreptitiously.
Good for you.
And then I connected to the university network with ISDN, so I had what would normally be 125 to 250 millisecond ping would be like a 70 millisecond ping. Just godlike.
Yeah, Jeremy. You calling 150 high ping?
Sorry.
You have no idea.
150 was high ping.
No, I know. It's just been a while.
I had 250 and 400.
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
Yeah,
I had
400. I used to play on Quake World servers, Rocket Arena servers, the original Rocket Arena servers, where you have a 400 millisecond ping. That was dark
I loved
times.
Rocket Arena.
Oh, so two men enter, one man leaves.
Yeah, you spawn with everything.
And the best part about it was that you could watch and learn. Like that's how I learned to get good at multiplayer.
That's right.
Was I watched how other people were playing and moving, and I always tried to play on servers that I was getting my ass kicked on because the ceilings of the arenas were transparent. We should make a Rocket Arena server, Jeremy. We could host that at home now.
Hell yeah.
I'll set it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Q3.
No, fuck Q3. Quake 1, man. Lightning gun, nail gun, rockets. All you need is rockets, man.
Forgot about the lightning gun.
All you need is rockets.
All I did was rockets. I've been testing something.
What have you been testing, Jeremy Williams?
So, for everyone who's using Octopi, this will be of interest to you. I found.
Ooh, yeah. I'm excited about this.
But there's got to be a certain percentage of your listeners, right?
I'm using Octopi.
So the standard Raspberry Pi camera is decent, but it's just a straight lens mounted right onto the camera that's on the circuit board. It doesn't have the best image quality, so I mounted my own wide-angle lens to it. It's always been a little blurry. I found this third-party drop-in replacement for the Raspberry Pi camera on eBay. I can't seem to find it domestically, so I don't even know if it's
It's something that somebody is making like at Alibaba or something in China
Yeah.
and just selling on the gray market.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
And it's completely redesigned, but the cable's the same, and it's a drop-in replacement.
So it's like you don't have to load a new driver or anything like that. The software just works.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the cool thing is it comes with its own screw-on fisheye lens, which is focusable. So the image quality is a huge boost, and the angle is much wider.
Huh.
And I like it quite a lot. It's sharpened my images on my Raspberry Pi tremendously.
And you still have the software control, like so you can shoot per layer, only layer seams and stuff like that.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, all the Octoprint stuff is the same.
Yeah.
So I did have to redesign my mount because the camera holes, the mounting holes are in a different spot, the position of the lens is different. So I had designed this part that allows you to mount the camera right on the Raspberry Pi, or right on the PrinterBot Simple Metals bed. So I had to redesign that holder. But I did, and quite happy with it. You can find this camera on eBay if you search for new camera module, fisheye lens Raspberry Pi.
Okay. Maybe if you'll send me a link, I'll drop that into the first comment.
Oh, that's a good
on
idea.
YouTube and on Tested.
Okay.
Can you send me? Will you send me a file, like one of your raw files, so I can see how good that looks? Like if that looks good enough that I could use that for Mystery Object, that would be awesome. Because right now I'm shooting stills with a GoPro at 4K resolution and then cropping and color correcting to get them right, and it's a fairly substantial workload.
I sent you those videos.
You sent me the videos, but are those the videos?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put them on my Dropbox.
Anything else anybody's been testing you want to talk about? Then I am going to play some music, and we'll talk about. We'll take some questions.
Emails?
Well, but we do the other one.
Email.
'Cause it's, we don't do emails. We do
Emails?
No.
Questions?
Boom.
If you have a question for This Is Only a Test, the email address is podcast@tested.com. Please keep your questions short and topical and interesting, and not just about, hey, here are things that I want. Which one should I buy? Because those are kind of boring questions. Here is our first question. Dear Will, Norman, Jeremy, I love the podcast and have been an avid listener for a year and a half. When I am not listening to awesome podcasts, I fancy myself an amateur underwater photographer. Once I was speaking with someone who's much more advanced than I was, and one of his tips was to never delete anything from your SD card through the camera, especially to make room for more shots. Instead, he downloads everything to a computer and reinserts the card into the camera, and then uses the format function of the card to clear it out, of the camera to clear out the card. I remember hearing Norm talk about shooting cosplayers and while on the floor doing a rough cut of his photos using the delete right in the camera. Was the advice I got bogus, or was it old technology that's changed? What do you think, Norman?
Personal preference. I've done that for years my way, deleting on the fly, and my SD cards do not read any slower than they have.
I think it's also...
I save way more time than going after and importing.
I mean, it also depends on what you're shooting too, right? Like,
I think his reasoning for doing it is, it sounds like by using the format function as opposed to the manual deleting, it sounds like it's better for the card.
Oh.
This is my takeaway from that question,
I mean,
which I've not heard.
The other way I would look at it is that if you're shooting something that if you lose the images, they're irreplaceable. Like if you're shooting 1,200 cosplayers and you lose one cosplay picture, it's not the end of the world. If you're shooting, underwater lava vents and you're never going to get to go back to that place again, then
It's a time trade-off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You take risks either way. So whatever you're comfortable
Jeremy,
with.
you seem like you have thoughts.
No, you guys covered it, man. You nailed it.
That's what we do. We cover it. This next question comes from Leonard. In the latest This Is Only a Test podcast, you discuss a question about remote support tools. I just wanted to let you know about TeamViewer. I use it all the time for this. It's cross-platform and free for personal use. You don't have to configure anything in the firewall, and it is really an easy and great thing to use because you can just send the executable to people across the internet, and then they'll install it and hook in. We got a lot of recommendations for TeamViewer. Leonard's was the one that I pulled out of the list.
Really?
Yes.
Is it free?
It is free for personal use. And doesn't require firewall configuration, which a lot of the free for personal use stuff does. So, Brian writes and says, "Hey guys, I know that like me, you all are really into camera gear. As a fellow Canon user, I have been looking at the EF and EFS lenses for my T3i to replace the kit lens. The barrel distortion and parallax are starting to bug me on the kit lens. I read some reviews online, then started looking at third-party lenses from Tamron and Sigma. I'm leaning toward the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 DC art lens as the potential replacement for the kit lens, but that got me thinking. A few months ago, Norm did a review with Tim from Wirecutter on the best entry-level DSLR. Have you considered doing a similar thing on lenses, discussing different lenses and features and manufacturers and alternatives from third parties that may be more cost-effective or have better feature, build, quality? Thanks, guys.
Sure.
What?
I mean, does he ask the question? Yes.
Are you bitter at this point in the podcast?
No.
We're approaching lunchtime. Norm gets grumpy. If you were a Canon user with
I think
a
the lens
T3i,
he picked is a fantastic lens.
that Sigma 18-35?
The Sigma art lenses are expensive, but they're expensive for off-brand lenses, but they're fantastic.
Can I just put in a good word for the prime lenses? Because there's something to be said for locking yourself down to a single.
I like prime
Size.
lenses. Yeah.
You know, go with a 50 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and just get used to always shooting that because you will get a beautiful low f-stop, for free. And it's they're smaller lenses, and you kind of feel like you know what your frame's going to be before you set up the shot.
And there are sweet spots on the prime lenses too. Like the 50 millimeter prime, for whatever reason, those are always really cheap and they're always really fast.
Yeah.
Nifty 50.
Yeah, 35s are pretty good too. I like a 35 on a full frame, but the 35 on an APS-C sensor crops to about what a 50 is.
Yeah.
In the real world.
50's narrow on a APS-C.
Yeah. I think we have one more. That might be it, actually. I thought I had one more question, but I don't see it. Anyway, if you have a question for This Is Only a Test, the email address is podcast@tested.com. That's going to do it for us this week, gentlemen. Jeremy Williams, thank you for coming by.
My pleasure.
Anything you would like to share that you are working on or that we didn't talk about so far? This is the plugging section of the show, if you'd like to plug something.
I wish I had something to plug. I don't have anything to plug.
Nothing to plug. You're Jareware on Twitter,
I'm Jareware.
right?
I'm about to cross 700 subscribers.
Oh, nice.
I'm very excited. No,
That's
it's
awesome.
It's a big day for me.
Norm Chan, anything for you? You're at Nchan.
Yep.
More good stuff on Tested every day. You posted the last of our CES stuff has gone out now, I think,
CS
right?
is done.
Finally. What was your favorite thing you saw at CES? After looking back, all the videos are out. Do you have a favorite?
It's still the DJI handheld gimbal.
The gimbal?
camera.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I thought that was pretty. That's fair.
And there are, as people have pointed out, many handheld motion stabilization gimbal camera mounts out there. And so things I'm looking at also.
Thanks to SkillFeed for sponsoring this week's episode of This Is Only a Test. We will be back next Thursday with another show. If you noticed last week, on iTunes now we have Mr. and Mrs. Smith and a bunch of dads, so you can get those podcasts anywhere you want. Just go to iTunes and search for them right now, and they'll pop right up. You can subscribe to them there. I think they're starting to show up in Overcast and the other podcast clients at this point as well. See you guys next Thursday. Today's outro comes to us from Jetlag.
Quick, who's going to win the Super Bowl? What's the score?
Who's in it?
Chargers, Seahawks and
Patriots.
Patriots.
CS and Patriots.
Patriots always lose, right? That's their move. I don't know.
What's going to be the best commercial in the Super Bowl?
Ooh, that's a better question. Apple iWatch. Apple
Puppies. I want one with puppies. If there's an iWatch commercial with puppies, that's the best commercial I've seen.
All right.
There we go. Is there gonna be an iWatch commercial? Really? Apple?
No, I
Apple
made
Watch?
that up.
Oh, okay. Jet lag. Thanks for the outro. If you want to submit an outro, go to Google and type raw outro song file, and there's instructions and a blank template, and you can make your own using dumb things that we've said on the podcast. Here's today's. Bye. Hi there. I didn't see you.
That's it.
I like that you can kind of hold it with the crotch, on the chin.
That's it.
I didn't listen to that one before I picked it. I don't have any idea what that's from even.
I have one last thing I meant to mention in the podcast, and that's everybody should watch Devs Play.
Devs Play?
Yeah, it's the Double Fine podcast where they take game developers and they sit them down with their games and they talk about when they made them.
Oh, like old games.
Yes.
John Romero one was.
Yeah, John Romero plays the entire episode 1 of Doom
Really?
Wow.
with beautiful commentary, well-produced video. Highly worth your time.
Is this a 2-player joint?
Yes.
Those guys make good stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Devs Play.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about it next week too.
All right.
Bye.